What if getting rich had nothing to do with luck, talent, education, or even intelligence? What if the real reason most people never get rich is because they quietly decide not to, long before they ever fail? Felix begins how to get rich with an uncomfortable truth. Wealth is not mysterious, rare, or reserved for geniuses. It is brutally demanding, deeply personal, and often avoided because it forces people to confront fear, responsibility, and desire. This is not a book about feeling good. It is a book about deciding, without excuses, whether you truly want to be rich, and what you are willing to sacrifice to make it happen. How rich? Felix opens by redefining what it actually means to be rich. This book is not about becoming the next Bill Gates or inheriting centuries-old wealth. It is about becoming rich enough to control your time, your choices, and your life. Rich enough to stop checking prices, to live where you want, to work because you choose to, not because you must. Dennis makes it clear that money is not happiness. In fact, wealth often brings stress, guilt, and new complications. But money buys two priceless things: time and freedom. He dismantles the romantic myths around wealth. The idea that rich people are happier, wiser, or morally superior is false. Wealth simply amplifies who you already are. It attracts envy, changes relationships, and commands a strange kind of respect rooted not in admiration, but in desire. Dennis also explains that most rich people don't even know their true net worth. Assets are tangled in businesses, taxes, trusts, and debt. Rich lists are guesses at best. The real purpose of wealth, Dennis argues, is not status or luxury, it is autonomy. The ability to wake up without obligation. To write, travel, think, create, or do nothing at all. This book exists for one reason: to help those who truly want that freedom understand what it actually takes to earn it. Part 1: Reasons Not to Get Rich. Chapter 1: Pole Positions. Dennis begins by addressing the most common excuse people give for never starting: timing. People convince themselves they are too young, too poor, too inexperienced, or too established, too responsible, too comfortable. At every stage of life, fear disguises itself as logic. The young fear failure. The mid-career fear loss. The established fear disruption. Dennis calls all of these excuses spurious. Money, he argues, is completely indifferent to background. It does not care about race, gender, upbringing, education, or social class. The only thing that truly disqualifies a person from becoming rich is the belief that they cannot. Young and penniless people, in fact, hold the greatest advantage. They have stamina, resilience, and almost nothing to lose. They are not yet poisoned by conventional wisdom. They do not know what is impossible, and therefore attempt things others avoid. Dennis explains that ignorance, when paired with determination, often beats expertise. Many fortunes were built because someone did not know they were breaking rules. Youth also brings energy, the ability to work brutal hours, recover from setbacks, and keep moving forward while others burn out. Combined with curiosity and a willingness to learn, this becomes a powerful advantage. For those who are already doing reasonably well, the danger is comfort. A decent salary, status, and security become a trap. Fear of losing progress outweighs the desire to create wealth. Dennis observes this daily in capable employees who are smart enough to build their own fortunes but choose safety instead. Fear of failure is the real enemy, not lack of opportunity. Senior professionals face the hardest truth. By the time responsibilities pile up, risk feels irresponsible. Yet Dennis notes that very few people who wait for the perfect time ever make the leap. Most never become rich, not because they lacked intelligence or opportunity, but because they lacked the courage to try when it mattered. Chapter 2: A Million to One. Dennis confronts the intimidating statistics around wealth. By his definition, only a microscopic fraction of the population qualifies as rich. At first glance, the odds appear hopeless. But statistics, he argues, lie through context. Most people are not even competing. Many have no desire to be rich. Others choose professions that cap their financial upside. Many are held back by health, age, or risk aversion. Once those groups are removed, the field shrinks dramatically. The real competition is not millions of people. It is a small minority who are willing to endure uncertainty, long hours, repeated failure, and social disapproval. When viewed this way, the odds improve significantly. Dennis also warns about the darker side of success. Making money can become addictive. The chase can consume personal life, health, and relationships. He admits his own mistakes, working endlessly long after financial freedom was achieved, driven not by need but by momentum. Wealth, if unmanaged, can enslave as easily as poverty. Yet these risks are not reasons to avoid the attempt. They are reasons to approach it with awareness. Dennis concludes Part 1 by drawing a clear line. If the odds frighten you, you will remain poor. If fear dictates your choices, wealth will always belong to someone else. The journey forward requires commitment, resilience, and the willingness to step into uncertainty. The excuses are now finished. The real work is about to begin. Part 2, Getting Started. Chapter 3, Harnessing the Fear of Failure. Fear of failure is the silent force that shapes most lives long before any real failure ever occurs. Felix Dennis makes it clear that fear does not need to be conquered or eliminated. It needs to be understood, accepted, and then used. Fear exists because the stakes are real. If getting rich were easy or painless, everyone would do it. The presence of fear is not a warning sign. It is confirmation that you are approaching something meaningful. Dennis argues that people vastly overestimate the damage failure can cause. Businesses fail, money disappears, plans collapse, yet life continues. Reputations recover faster than imagined, skills remain, and lessons compound. What truly destroys ambition is not failure itself, but the decision to avoid risk in order to preserve comfort. Fear becomes dangerous only when it freezes action. The correct response is to reframe failure as education. Every setback reveals weaknesses, blind spots, and incorrect assumptions. Those who get rich are not immune to failure, they simply refuse to let it define them. By repeatedly surviving setbacks, fear slowly loses its grip. Momentum replaces anxiety, and progress becomes possible. Chapter 4, The Search. Getting rich begins with deliberate searching, not with passion or inspiration. Dennis stresses that opportunities rarely appear as lightning bolts of brilliance. They emerge slowly through observation, frustration, and curiosity. The task is to study markets, businesses, and human behavior closely enough to notice inefficiencies others ignore. The search demands patience. It may involve years of looking without obvious reward. Many abandon the process because it feels unproductive, but this quiet phase is where understanding deepens. Wealth is often created in industries that appear dull, outdated, or unglamorous. Competition is lower precisely because excitement is absent. Dennis advises readers to question everything that seems accepted as just the way things are. Poor service, unnecessary costs, outdated systems, and underserved audiences are signals, not inconveniences. Those who stay alert long enough eventually recognize patterns that point toward opportunity. Chapter 5, The Fallacy of the Great Idea. The belief that wealth comes from a single brilliant idea is one of the most damaging myths in business. Dennis dismantles it completely. Ideas are abundant. Execution is scarce. Countless people wait their entire lives for inspiration and never act. Dennis explains that success depends far more on timing, pricing, distribution, and relentless execution than originality. A simple concept pursued obsessively will outperform a clever idea neglected at the first sign of resistance. Progress creates clarity. Waiting for perfection produces nothing. What matters most is movement. Acting creates feedback, which leads to improvement. Those who begin imperfectly gain experience that no amount of planning can replace. The real advantage belongs to those who start. Chapter 6, Obtaining Capital. Lack of capital is one of the most commonly cited excuses for inaction, and Dennis treats it with little sympathy. Money follows evidence. It flows toward people who demonstrate momentum, competence, and resilience. Those who deserve capital eventually find it. Dennis encourages starting small and proving viability before seeking external funding. Bootstrapping forces discipline and sharpens decision-making. Investors, banks, and partners respond to traction, not promises. Risk is reduced when results exist. The real challenge is not convincing others to fund you, but proving to yourself that your venture works. Capital is not the beginning of the journey. It is a byproduct of progress. Chapter 7, Never Give In. Persistence is the most underrated requirement of wealth. Dennis argues that most people fail simply because they stop too soon. Initial excitement fades, obstacles appear, and discomfort sets in. Those who retreat at this stage never discover how close they were to success. Endurance matters more than intelligence. Long hours, repeated setbacks, and emotional fatigue are unavoidable. The people who get rich are those who remain standing when others drop out. Stamina, obsession, and stubborn refusal to quit create a decisive edge. Giving in feels rational in the moment. It often appears sensible, even responsible. But over time, repeated surrender compounds into regret. Persistence, though painful, compounds into wealth. Chapter 8. The 5 most common startup errors. Dennis identifies recurring mistakes that destroy young ventures. Costs are underestimated, demand is assumed rather than tested, and expansion happens too quickly. Founders hire prematurely, lose focus, or cling to failing strategies out of pride. Each mistake stems from impatience or ego. Sustainable success requires restraint, adaptability, and ruthless prioritization. Errors are inevitable, but ignoring reality is optional. Survival depends on the ability to correct course quickly. Part 3. Getting Rich. Chapter 9. Cardinal Virtues. Felix Dennis is uncompromising in this section. Getting rich is not a matter of clever hacks or secret knowledge. It is the result of a few hard virtues practiced relentlessly over a long period of time. The first and most decisive of these virtues is focus. Dennis argues that almost everyone has enough talent to succeed at something, but very few possess the ability to concentrate on one objective without being distracted by new ideas, side opportunities, or the opinions of others. Wealth is built by people who stay on one path long after boredom sets in and praise disappears. Discipline follows focus. Dennis stresses that motivation is unreliable and fleeting. Discipline is what keeps progress moving when enthusiasm fades. Getting rich requires doing repetitive, unglamorous work day after day, often without visible results. Courage is equally important, not as dramatic bravery, but as the willingness to make unpopular decisions, to endure criticism, and to act decisively when hesitation feels safer. Patience is another virtue that separates those who succeed from those who quit. Wealth rarely arrives in a straight line. Long periods of stagnation are followed by sudden leaps forward. Many abandon their efforts just before momentum turns in their favor. Persistence binds all these virtues together. Intelligence may open doors, but persistence determines who remains inside long enough to benefit. Chapter 10. A few words about luck. Dennis acknowledges that luck plays a role in success, but he strips it of any mystical importance. Luck does not favor those who wait. It favors those who are already moving. To outsiders, success appears sudden and fortunate, but Dennis insists that what looks like luck is usually the result of years of preparation and effort that went unnoticed. Opportunity often arrives disguised as inconvenience, confusion, or risk. Those who hesitate miss it because they are waiting for certainty. Those who act appear lucky because they place themselves in situations where opportunity can strike. Dennis warns strongly against using luck as an excuse for inaction. Waiting for the perfect moment is simply another way of staying safe. Luck, in Dennis's view, is attracted by effort. The more relentlessly you work, the more chances you create for luck to intervene on your behalf. Chapter 11. The Art of Negotiating. Negotiation is one of the most powerful skills in the pursuit of wealth, and Dennis treats it as a lifelong discipline rather than a single technique. He argues that successful negotiation has little to do with charm or aggression. It is rooted in preparation, patience, and emotional control. The strongest position in any negotiation is the ability to walk away. Desperation weakens leverage instantly. Dennis emphasizes the importance of silence, noting that most people destroy their own advantage by talking too much. Listening carefully reveals what the other party values, fears, and needs. Timing is equally critical. Knowing when to press and when to wait can dramatically alter outcomes. Over a lifetime, even small improvements in negotiating skill compound into enormous financial advantages. Chapter 12. Ownership. Ownership. This chapter forms the backbone of Dennis's philosophy. He states the rule plainly: salaries do not make people rich. Ownership does. Income may provide comfort, but equity creates freedom. Those who trade time for money without acquiring ownership remain vulnerable, no matter how high their income appears. Dennis urges readers to structure their efforts around acquiring and retaining ownership wherever possible. Control over assets determines who benefits from long-term growth. Titles, prestige, and praise are distractions if they are not accompanied by equity. Failing to understand the importance of ownership guarantees a lifetime of working for someone else's wealth. Understanding it changes everything. Chapter 13, The Joys of Delegation. Dennis makes it clear that scale is impossible without delegation. Those who insist on doing everything themselves place a hard ceiling on their success. Delegation is not weakness, it is leverage. Hiring capable people and trusting them with responsibility frees time, which Dennis considers the most valuable resource of all. Time reclaimed through delegation can be reinvested into strategy, growth, and opportunity. Trying to control every detail may feel productive, but it ultimately limits progress. The ability to delegate well allows wealth to grow beyond the constraints of individual effort. Chapter 14, A Piece of the Pie. Dennis argues that people work harder and care more deeply about what they own. Sharing ownership, when done intelligently, aligns incentives far better than salaries or bonuses ever can. Equity transforms employees into partners and partners into long-term allies. He warns against the instinct to hoard control. Excessive greed often strangles growth. By offering talented people a meaningful stake, you multiply effort, loyalty, and creativity. The goal is not to keep the entire pie for yourself, but to grow it so large that everyone benefits. Chapter 15, The Power of Focus. Dennis returns to focus because it is so often underestimated. Wealth is rarely built by doing many things moderately well. It is built by doing one thing exceptionally well for a very long time. Distraction is costly. Chasing trends, diversifying too early, or constantly switching direction drains energy and capital. Focus simplifies decisions, sharpens execution, and creates dominance. Saying no becomes as important as saying yes. Those who master focus create momentum that is difficult for others to challenge. Part 4. Troubleshooting in Endgame. Chapter 16, Whoops! Mistakes are inevitable, no matter how experienced or careful you become. Dennis emphasizes that failure itself is rarely fatal, but denial often is. The moment something goes wrong, speed matters. Problems that are confronted early can be corrected. Problems that are ignored grow destructive. Honesty with yourself and others is essential. Blame delays recovery. Responsibility accelerates it. Those who survive setbacks are not those who avoid mistakes, but those who respond decisively when mistakes occur. Chapter 17, A Recap for Idlers. Dennis offers a blunt recap for anyone hoping for shortcuts. There are none. Wealth rewards responsibility, endurance, and sustained effort. Excuses do not compound. Action does. He reminds the reader that most people already know what they should be doing. The difference lies not in knowledge, but in willingness to act consistently over time. Chapter 18, How to Stay Rich. Getting rich and staying rich require different skills. Dennis explains that many fortunes are lost not through bad luck, but through arrogance, excess, and complacency. Discipline must continue long after financial success is achieved. Staying rich requires humility, restraint, and vigilance. Risk must be managed rather than chased. Lifestyle inflation, poor judgment, and unchecked ego erode wealth faster than failure ever could. Chapter 19, The 8 Secrets to Getting Rich. Dennis distills his experience into core principles that run throughout the book. A burning desire to be rich, the stamina to outwork others, the courage to take responsibility, and the discipline to maintain focus form the foundation. Ownership remains central. Without it, effort enriches others. With it, effort compounds. These principles are simple, but simplicity does not make them easy. Chapter 20, Remember to Duck. Dennis ends with a warning rather than encouragement. Success attracts attention, envy, and danger. Legal threats, bad partners, opportunists, and reckless decisions multiply as wealth grows. Staying alert, humble, and cautious becomes essential. The higher you rise, the more carefully you must move. Wealth is not only something to be built, but something to be protected. Getting rich is not about luck, brilliance, or privilege. It is about decision, endurance, and ownership. Most people never fail, they simply never begin. Those who choose otherwise accept discomfort in exchange for freedom. The path is hard, uncertain, and unforgiving. But for those who truly want it, it works.